So welcome once again, everybody. This is Jarl Jonas with CourseSites. I help to direct the program, and I'm happy to bring you today What's New in CourseSites session. In particular, we're covering a lot of the features that have come along with the upgrade to Service Pack 10 with some other minor adjustments that we've made in CourseSites. And I have an even newer feature, the video everywhere, that we can discuss as well, that we have put on for your benefit to go ahead and use and experiment on CourseSites. So what I want to talk about today is some of the features that we'll be discussing. In particular are the My Blackboard and global navigation features, and you'll see a big change. I wouldn't say big change, a visual change in how users will navigate some elements in the system, and we guide you along the way as you get in there. There was some updates to the content editor and the math editor, so I think you'll be happy with some of those updates. Instructors who are utilizing a lot of assessments are going to be pleased to know that item analysis has been added. So we'll go ahead and show you and talk a little bit about that. And then I've grouped up just some other user experience enhancements that I think are beneficial for the most part for the end user. And the end users that really I'm going to be covering today are the teachers and the students. If for some reason on your campus you are using Blackboard technology and you have some questions about administrative updates, we can perhaps address some of those at the end. Or I can point you to some other resources so you can get familiar with that as well. And I just also wanted to give you a peek into the next couple of months on CourseSites so you can see what's coming and know when to come back to try out some different features that Blackboard will be releasing a bit more frequently. Okay, if there's anything not on this agenda, go ahead and type it into the chat now so I can go ahead and check back just to see if we have time to address any further items that you thought would be covered in today's session. So I first want to go ahead and talk about the new features that we're calling the My Blackboard and the Global Nav. And just to first give you a visual, I'm going to be just to give you a sense of how today's session is going to run. Because I'm working on a wireless connection at a family member's house, I'm going to be using most slides today. It's a lighter connection, but if, as I mentioned earlier, we have upgraded to Service Pack 10 on CourseSites, so everything you see today is now available to be tried in the system. But as you first log into CourseSites, or as your system is upgraded to Service Pack 10, you're going to see this, what we call a login overlay. And this is really just a notification to the users that there is a new navigation scheme. So rather than having the links that you might have seen here before in CourseSites in what we call the ribbon, or in your normal Learn instances, they've been condensed into what we call a global nav, a global navigation menu, or global nav for short. Right? And this then will lead to the My Blackboard feature, which we'll talk a bit about early on in today's presentation. So this is easy to close, and it won't show up again. It just shows up for the very first time. You can see it recognizes the user's first name. Again, we really just wanted to make sure and draw attention to the fact that some of the navigational features have been condensed into this new navigation. Those of you who are using web services like Facebook, or perhaps have a Gmail or Yahoo account, other web services, they've gone ahead and followed a similar scheme where you see the name and you expand that and have access to some user account settings and some other navigation aspects. So as we do close that overlay and expand the global nav menu, you see that we have access to all the courses. And you'll see an example here. This is over on top of the tabs, typically the My CourseSites here tab or My Institution tab at your institution, where you would still have access to the CourseSites and the What's New and To Do. But the courses are also then available, and you can see they're listed by recently visited. This is a setting that you can control of how often those appear or when they disappear in your settings down below. Okay, so you'll see that there's a couple of sections in here, in particular for CourseSites users. I want to make sure that this is one point you remember and pass along today to students if you are using CourseSites with actual students, that the support link has been embedded here within the global nav. So this will take you to the support page where you can access the live reps through chat, or remind you about the phone number, or submit a ticket and search the knowledge base. Okay, so the courses section, the CourseSite support, and the settings area, you'll see that a home button and a help button has also been activated here. The help will also go to the CourseSites support and CourseSites. Your institution, if you're running a regular Learn instance, will go ahead and determine where these links go ahead and point. Okay, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see a number of icons, and this is going to be icons that represent different areas, and we'll talk about that next. This is really leading to the My Blackboard dashboard, really, I guess to call it, and the My Blackboard feature, which will start to condense a good number of the information that students and teachers are seeing all in one place. But before we talk and take a look in that in particular, let me tell you a little bit about the My Blackboard feature and the what, how, and why it all came together. For those who are, have been using Blackboard technology for a while, you can see and may have followed some of the progression with the user experience. And hopefully what you'll see with the My Blackboard experience is that we're starting to move more towards a learner-centric model rather than necessarily a course-specific model. And there will still be the classroom type of experience, but students more and more, as we listen to them and listen to the instructors, they want to be able to have access to information across various course experiences all in one place, but maybe be able to filter that and not necessarily have to hop into course spaces each time to check on particular discussions or check on their blog work or even to check grades. So what you're going to start to see is that the My Blackboard experience will consolidate a lot of the critical information from across all of the courses, and even as we continue to expand this capability across the platform itself into a nice usable interface that the users have in the way that they are used to it and like to consume it with today's web services. And really the why is addressed a little bit, in terms of the obvious need is just really our market research and the usability research that we've been doing with instructors and students on a continual basis. But we know that the student is becoming much more active in terms of all of the things that they're doing. While we would love to think that Blackboard is going to be the place where they live, breathe, and stay for a good amount of their day, we know they go in to take advantage of some of the opportunities that you're providing with them as teachers and learners. But they have a lot of other things to go on. So we need to give them the information in the best way possible in the most consolidated fashion. So once you do click on one of those icons from the Global Nav menu, you're going to be taken to a new page that, again, we will refer to as the My Blackboard page. And you'll also start to see the icons expand or continue to grow as this capability is built out over the coming months and particularly through next year. But one of the most important features that will be available to start will be posts. And this is a centralized area for students to go ahead and have access to all of the discussions, the blogs, and the journal, perhaps if the journals are course related. So all the posts that are coming through in their actual discussions across the classes would be available there. And they can go ahead, if they click on a particular one, you can see this is highlighted. It expands over into the area on the right, into the full post. And while the screenshot is a bit cut off down here, they would have the ability to go ahead and reply right here within the My Post, or be able to visit the class to see the larger discussion if that's what they would want to have, or if they need more context to do so. You'll also start to see the availability of what we're calling the avatars, or their profile pictures that the users may have uploaded or the institutions may have uploaded for students and instructors. So those are something that will start to come with the addition of what we'll talk about later, of the cloud and the cloud profile. So those will begin to populate as well throughout the discussion blogs and journals and collaboration tools in particular. Okay, and so that's the posts area. So that's what that icon represents. Then there's an updates area. And some of you may be using already the modules that we refer to as what's new, to do, alerts, and needs attention, based on your needs and the student's needs to keep them up to date. Well, this is really, I would say, a next step in that process, again, of collecting the information that students need. You can see there's an all category that goes ahead and lists by activity of what's happened in their courses, really more by date rather than necessarily consumed by course. And then they could go ahead and filter this And this is both for faculty and students. They could filter it by course. And you see the number of notifications. Okay? And what I didn't point out earlier is that these numbers are also indicated by, when the first time you log in, a red mark up here at the top right. So you'll know that something has changed and been different, and you need to go ahead and see what that might be. So this could be, and these are everything that would be currently within the notification system. So things like the availability of new content, the availability of new tests for students, if an assignment has been graded, if a discussion has been posted. So everything that's currently within the notification system in Learn will go ahead and present here, as well as be able to, if those of us who have access to organizations on our campuses, might go ahead and show here. In CourseSites, we use an organization only for the instructor community, so instructors might see that if I make updates to that area and respond to particular questions or post in that course. And then the institution would be a bit more, if as system announcements, you can see that there's one that's presenting here. For instance, as we announce the upgrade of CourseSites, update of CourseSites, pardon me, those will begin to present in this My Blackboard Updates area, and could be filtered by just clicking on the institution area alone. So that's really system related. Okay, and then what else you'll see for this, this is really much more student specific, but the students would have now a central area to go ahead and see the grades for their course. Again, you can see that they're notified of what's been updated, if a quiz has been automatically scored, or perhaps graded by a teacher if there was a short answer question, something like that. Okay, or if perhaps an assignment was updated, or perhaps sent back for an additional attempt. And then once again, the student clicks on a particular assessment or assignment, they'll see that present over here in the content area, where they can have access to that particular assessment assignment and go ahead and review the feedback or that particular attempt. And this would then take them into the particular course. Okay. And here too you can see that they can filter by date, so it's just an activity stream of sorts that comes through based on what's happened across all classes that you can see listed here underneath in italics. Or they can go ahead and filter by course like we could do within the updates and the discussion and the posts area. So I will pause there because I saw a couple of questions come in, and that really describes a bit of the global nav and the My Blackboard experience. But you can see here, as I tried to point out earlier, the number that shows up in the global nav menu when you log in to go ahead and indicate that there are updates available for you. So Barbara, you ask, can courses developed in CourseSites be copied into Blackboard Learn? And the answer is absolutely. The CourseSites is driven by Blackboard Learn as its main underpinning technology, along with the Mobile Learn and some Collaborate technology in there. The only consideration would be that, for instance, we are now at CourseSites, we've upgraded to Service Pack 10. We never promised to be backwards compatible, so the courses would most likely import if, let's say, you were on Service Pack 8 at your institution, but there might be some elements that might not necessarily import correctly, or you'll see, without a better word, wonkiness if you try to go backwards. But as long as you're on the same version, or if you happen to be higher, then that will definitely work. Same thing coming from your institution, to answer the question a little bit more opposite. If you want to bring courses from your institution into CourseSites, then that you are more than welcome to do so, and can do that through the course creation process that we've built. And you can import CE Vista courses, Angel courses, Common Cartridge packages, as well as Blackboard Learn packages. And Ray, Utah, you have a question. Can you comment on the notification settings? Absolutely. So I'll go back up to the screen here, you can now find the notification settings when you come into your global nav and come into settings. This will lead you to a screen where you can determine, sometimes this is based on how administrators have decided to set up the system, but typically you can be notified of different things that are going on, like within that updates area. You might have heard me talk about the what's new and to-do modules. So those are the first iteration of how students and teachers were being informed of what's changed in their courses, what might be due. But the notification settings now available through the settings area in the global nav, you can determine what you see as an individual in those modules, or perhaps even get an email if you have an email attached to your account and have the ability to do so. What you get emailed about, and then anything that you have determined will show up in the dashboard option will show up in the posts area of the My Blackboard area. We'll soon be, and I'll talk about this later, adding a bit of mobile capability to that as well, so you can get some mobile updates about what's happening in courses in addition. Okay, Ray, so good question. So if on your campus the default is email, the My Blackboard would, I'd have to double check on this, but I believe that as long as the dashboard option is selected, then that will show up within the My Blackboard Updates area. Let me just make a quick note here to double check on that setting. But thank you for all your questions. I'm going to give you my email now, just in case we don't have time, and I know I don't want to ask you to put your email in the chat since this will be public and is recorded, but go ahead and send me, I will download the chat and I can most likely obtain your email to you from the system as long as you have an account. But if you don't have a CourseSites account or you want me to use a different email, then just go ahead and send me an email there. Okay, so that takes us through the global nav again in My Blackboard. So we now want to talk a little bit about content creation and some of the exciting changes there. Now on CourseSites, some of you may have already seen and used the updated content editor, which we decided to put this on CourseSites a bit early as a field trial of sorts before the general Learn user base would have access in the main upgrade. It was available to clients as a building block to install through a limited field trial, so some of you may have participated there. But you'll see here that I've outlined the new content editor. This will become the default content editor in Service Pack 10. There is not the option to go back to the other editor. There's not the option to turn this off. And actually the options for your users to opt out of the content editor have been removed, mainly because we're using one of the most widely used content editor out there, built or powered by what's known as TinyMCE. And this is technology, content editor technology that's being used by companies like Facebook and other large web services. So we've customized it a little bit. It is not using what's previously known as Java applets. So you'll see mostly no pop-ups any longer that you might have seen in the past, and it really is much more browser friendly and a bit quicker. It has some great features that I really, from a course development standpoint, appreciate. In particular, when you're uploading pictures, you'll see that that third row here is available to us. The picture icon is what would enable us to go ahead and upload pictures. I know as teachers, I've answered a lot of questions of what HTML code could I use to go ahead and align pictures, or do I have to do it in tables? But there actually now is a nice alignment tool. A little pop-up will show up once your picture is uploaded. You'll have a secondary tab that you can go ahead and adjust alignment, and it nicely wraps all of the text around that for you. And the one other area I want to make sure that you definitely visit very first is this information area that gives you a great legend to what all of the new icons stand for. As you can see, it's a little bit different of what we might have been used to in Learn, so there surely might be questions as you get into the system. Again, it's been on CourseSites for quite a while, so no changes here for CourseSites users, but with those of us with Learn, this could be an area of education that you just might want to highlight for users. And again, this information will drop down a nice legend for you to show you exactly what all of the icons are. The mashup tool is also still available, so that's in here as well. The clear formatting is also available, but one of the other great features of this particular content editor in general is the fact that there's no longer the need for a separate paste from Word mashup tool. And it just nicely strips out some of that back-end XML from if you're pasting from Word, as we know many instructors and even students doing as they complete discussions and assignments. So it'll take out that messy code from Word and Office documents nicely go ahead and keep the formatting. Now, of course, it depends on the level of styling, but you can use the clear formatting tool here to go ahead and get rid of some additional things if it's giving you more trouble. But when we initially put this on CourseSites, this was about late summer. I really didn't see any issues with courses being content being misconstrued or anything like that. The one thing to also consider is that this is requiring updated HTML standards. So any tags that have been deprecated from the HTML library may no longer work, such as the alignment tags that teachers might be using to align pictures, where they now use more modern tags. So those types of things you should watch out for in terms of content development, but at the same time that it strips out the word code, it's also an HTML validator, so it will show you where the HTML might be out of date and where updates might be necessary. Okay, so that was quite a mouthful. I saw a couple questions come in. Let me see. Yeah, okay, so I just wanted to expand that too, so to show you that you can expand the editor to full screen. Just want to make sure I included that here for you today. And you're also able to adjust it as you were with the previous editor. But the full screen is really nice to give you a good amount of real estate to work with as you're building out the content. Okay, so I see a couple questions specifically that comes in. What is the icon for creating a link? That is still there. As I quickly look through the list here, let me go back maybe to the smaller one. Yeah, it's no longer the globe icon, but you'll see that if I actually highlight a word, this grayed out link tool will go ahead and activate, and that's where I can go ahead and put in a link. So Georgette, hopefully that answers your question. Monica, once you type text into the editor, the link icon opens. Thanks, Monica. I should have looked. You were helping us out, so thank you so much. Ray, you ask, how well is CourseSites integrating with Windows 8? So overall, I know that Blackboard is in the process as Microsoft comes out with its technology. I haven't seen or heard of any issues myself from CourseSites users with Windows 8. It's typically more the browser and the combination with that platform. I know that with Service Pack 10, there wasn't enough time because we had already been working on this by the time Windows 8 was coming out, so that the next Service Pack, either 11 or 12, should be much more fully compatible with Windows 8. So depending on campus purchasing decisions and technology upgrade decisions there, you might consider waiting to Service Pack 11 if that's the case, Ray. Okay, Monica, yep, thanks. Appreciate you helping me out here. Okay, let me go ahead and scoot forward. As I see, we're coming up on half the time here. So the other updated area, so the content editor itself is updated, and then we've also linked this into a new math editor that is being driven by what's called the Weir's Formula Editor. And again, this is a widely used math editor that we decided to go ahead and incorporate into CourseSites as well as Blackboard. And here you can see that the menu's a bit similar to what we had before, but I think what users have found that it's a bit better organized in terms of the categories of the operators that they're looking for, as well. The rendering of the images is a bit better. Again, from the end users that we've worked with on CourseSites with this, and then through the limited field trial that I know my colleagues have worked with, have found that to be a much more user-friendly and a much better usable math editor, and that the space around the editors, the space around the actual images that get rendered are not necessarily too huge to be able to incorporate it with other information that you're trying to convey. Okay, so just some updates to that as well that hopefully your users will go ahead and benefit and appreciate. Okay, now item analysis I've left on its own because it's a pretty big addition, and I think that you can show me by using the green check or red X how many of you have actually gone ahead and released an assessment of some form or have worked with a colleague that have released an assessment on either CourseSites or Blackboard. Go ahead and give me a green check and a red X. And I can get a sense of how many of you have worked with assessments then. Okay, so it's seeming to be a little bit of the majority, 6 so far yeses, 3 nos. And of those assessments, I'm particularly talking about quizzes or exams, and whether you're using the Blackboard assessment tool or perhaps using Respondus or something like that to create the tests first. We've added what we now call item analysis. And item analysis has been something that teachers have been asking us for quite a while, and we just wanted to make sure that we got it right. And by looking at the screen, you can see that we have gone ahead and created a way for teachers to be able to generate a report on an assessment. So really, item analysis is meant to help teachers determine the validity of the tests. Are the questions that are being asked truly addressing the learning that they're looking for, and providing them with some discrimination and difficulty levels here in the item analysis is also helping them to determine how that question is being answered by the students, and is it a valid question or not. So here you can see a little bit below is that each question is then separated out, given its own discrimination score, but here you see the overall test summary. And these options are able to be, or this information is able to be downloaded if you would want to for further offline analysis. But hopefully you'll find that this brings us a next step into the reporting and insight into the testing process. The one amazing combination of features is the recent addition of the regrade feature. So those of you who may not have been aware, we also added in a previous service pack, I have to remember whether it was 8 or 9 to be honest, a regrade feature. I think it was service pack 9, where you could go back if teachers perhaps, which I've done myself, if I maybe misidentified a particular correct answer for a particular multiple choice, I typically would have to go back and regrade that every single student on their own. If I have 25, 50, 100 students, it becomes a magnanimous task. So there's a regrading tool that's available. If I find that there's a question perhaps that comes up in this report that I find that's something that I want to exclude or perhaps maybe modify, you can see that there's an edit test button right from this report that takes me into the test area, and that's where I can determine whether I edit that question or I exclude that question, and then go ahead and regrade that exam for however many numbers of students that I have, and then it just becomes a much more efficient process. So hopefully I've done a good job explaining this out. If you have further questions, let me know. If you think you have some colleagues who have further questions, I can definitely help address that. Okay, so then as we move on a little bit to our other user enhancements, staying a bit within the testing area, you'll see that we have an update to the fill in the blank question. And the fill in the blank question is something where in the past teachers would have to go ahead and identify all of the different options that the students could respond with. For instance, if I had asked, who was the first president of the United States, somebody might type in G. Washington, and a student might type in George Washington, and I might have to be pretty specific about what I'm accepting. But here we've added a couple qualifiers that you can see. I've included a few here on the screen itself that I can put in answer parameters to go ahead and check for within the student's answers, but not necessarily have to think of every combination, every capitalization, depending on the flexibility or the pattern that I'm looking for in the student answers. So I can go ahead and look for now what we're calling it is a pattern match using these identifiers, and then I can check the pattern just to make sure with a couple of examples myself to make sure that if I know what students are entering, that they'll go ahead and get the answer either marked correct or incorrect. Okay, so that's a great new feature that, again, teachers have been asking for quite a while. And here we're just working on the usability of the system itself. As some of you might be aware, if you're utilizing the Learn 9.1 system, or if you've been in CourseSites, you'll know that each course now has a content collection, and perhaps if you have licensed to the full content collection, this would be affected there as well. But as you are uploading content into your course and you want to go ahead and either upload that into the content collection or pull from your course's content collection, you'll be presented with this new picker. And there'll be a Browse tab, kind of using a taskbar metaphor that we see elsewhere in the system. And this, again, I've just noted that as I'm selecting content to place within my course, or if you're, again, on your campus, you're using content collection, or students have access to a content collection, they'll see this as well. And that would be if you click the Browse Content Collection button and you want to publish content from a content collection area, you'll see this new file picker, as we're calling it, with a Browse tab. And then sometimes I forget to upload the file myself, or, oh, hey, that's not on there yet, let me go ahead and upload. So you can upload during the selection process as well. We're just trying to separate them out into a bit better of a visual experience, giving you, again, your location and your drawer down here to let you know which items have been selected. Okay. And something that we had just added yesterday, but that you as CourseSites users can take advantage of, and clients. This is just a side note, not necessarily a feature that's automatically included with SP10. Okay, for those of us who have Learn or Blackboard technology in our campus, this is a separate building block that has been released, and this represents somewhat of a new technology release strategy, or method, I should say, really more for Blackboard, where we'll be releasing these types of building blocks on a monthly basis. So the video everywhere is our first in that process, and clients can go ahead and opt to make these available on their platforms through the building block framework, and make that available to teachers and students. So we went ahead and added that to CourseSites after our upgrade, after we took care of the full upgrade to Service Pack 10. Uploaded the building block and went ahead and enabled that. So in addition to what I showed you earlier in the content editor, what you will now see in your content editors is a record button, and it'll look like a webcam. And the video everywhere, in essence, is enabling you and your students to go ahead and record video wherever the content editor is provided, as long as you have access or connected to a webcam in your laptop, or a separate device that might be connected to your computer. Once you go ahead and launch that recorder, you see here my colleague George Kroner here helping us run through the process. A recorder is launched. You'll see that the video everywhere is currently powered by YouTube, so we were trying to leverage one of the market-leading video streaming providers. So as you are going ahead and recording your video, there is a requirement that you have access to a Google account that is linked to a YouTube channel. But a specific mention there is that these videos that are being created do not get published in the channel for public consumption. They are marked as private. So you would have the option to make them public at a later point, but only those who have access to the course can actually view the videos within, or if you decide to pass on the links to these recorded videos, the users who get that link can view it as well, but for the most part it stays private. As you can see, privacy, they remain unlisted as the video is being recorded. And then it ends up just going ahead and ending up in the text editor, where you can combine it with instructions, with further text, with other media, and then go ahead and publish that out to the course. And again, because it's available within the editor, this is not only available to the instructors as they're creating content in the course, or as they're responding to students in the discussion, or even responding to students as from an assignment. I know if I teach for Excelsior College up in Albany, if I had this, just to create a bit more of a personalized experience for some students who I have in the military around the world, I might record myself and give them some feedback on their writing or their assignments. And similarly, the students can now go ahead and submit work using this feature. They can go ahead and provide discussions using this feature, and if they're responding to the blogs. So this is in addition to the mashup that you can see that already exists for other YouTube-generated content to be pulled in. This is specifically for the individual user to record from their computer or laptop with the linked webcam. And again, a Google account is necessary that would be linked to a personal YouTube channel. So you'll see that as if you walk through the process yourself, that it's a pretty guided process with prompts along the way, checking for those accounts, checking for those connections. So a very exciting feature. I'm very happy to be able to announce that to you all today. I did see a couple of questions come in, so let me see who has written. So Barbara, you wrote, so does video everywhere eliminate the need for Collaborate? I would say no. That's a good question, depending on how you're using Collaborate. Because Collaborate is more of a synchronous tool, at least if you're talking about the web conferencing software. So I know a number of clients use the Blackboard web conferencing software to not only interact with students in a synchronous manner, but they do record those. On CourseSites, just as a reminder, we haven't enabled the recording on the CourseSites Live, which is powered by Collaborate. But I would say, the video everywhere, maybe from the recording purposes, if you're using it just to record but not interact with students, but it wouldn't replace it because then there's not that synchronous component. So this is, typically the provision of content by video, which we know is very popular amongst, particularly in blended and online courses. So let me know if that helps answer your question there, Barb. Deb, are there options for closed captioning within the videos? That's a good question. I would believe that because it is powered by YouTube, that you could go through the normal process in your channel once these are created to add the closed captioning, but I'll just go ahead and make sure. I know that we try to be very cognizant of accessibility features in particular, and YouTube having already been quite developed in this area. I believe that was one of our reasons for selecting them as a partner in this capacity. So let me just go ahead and check on that for you. And Deb, I had wrote my email earlier, so since I don't see your name in the list here, if you could go ahead and shoot me an email that I just provided in the chat, because I want to ask you to put yours in there just to make sure I have the correct individual that I can get back to. And what I would typically do is provide some questions that have been asked, and we can blast that out if I have the answer with the recording of this altogether. But just to make sure I have the right person in case I need to follow up with you individually. Okay, and then we see Georgette, you ask, are the videos stored in the courses and count against the course quota? So Georgette, great question again there, but as the courses are being streamed by YouTube, it is being stored by YouTube. So it's not counting towards the course quota, besides a couple of, I would say, probably more than just a few kilobytes per se, just with the player and stuff that's being populated into the editor itself, but not counting this full video up against your course quota because it's being published into the YouTube streaming service. A great question there. Okay, let me know if that helps address. But again, this is live, now available on CourseSites for you to try out. For those of you who are at schools, I do have to check on this. I should have checked. If I can quickly check this document here that I have in the background. I want to say that this would be available for schools who are running Service Pack 8 and beyond. That is also something that I will check on. I don't believe that you need to be on Service Pack 10 to run this building block, but I will double check on that. It could be that we are utilizing some capability and technology in Service Pack 10 that we are linking to, but I will go ahead and make sure that I follow up with everyone on that. But feel free to go ahead and try it out in CourseSites and see if this is something that you would want to advocate for use on your campus as well. Okay. So we're now into our looking ahead. So we're coming up around the corner, final 15 minutes of our session. I just want to again give you a bit of a glimpse into what will be coming. So we've talked currently about what is now available on CourseSites since our upgrade late last week and our addition of the video everywhere just yesterday. But something that's going to be coming later this year as well, which I think you'll be really able to leverage beginning particularly for those using CourseSites as an actual environment for learning with their students next term or next quarter or next marking period, would be the calendar. And can I get a show of hands from those of you in the session? Do you currently use the Blackboard calendar or know of anybody on your campus or at your school or organization that uses the embedded Blackboard calendar? So just go ahead and give me a yes and no. Okay, oh, we're about even. Sometimes it's a big split with no. I probably don't have to tell you, and remind you of some of the limitations of the current calendar. I think I can be pretty transparent there, but just with the time that we have, okay, so we're about evenly split between yeses and nos. I think those who are using it are going to be very happy, as you see here, with some of the new, much more modern features that you might be used to. Perhaps, some teachers have even moved to using Yahoo or Google calendars, or are used to sometimes using iCalendar as well. So we've created a very modern drag and drop interface where you can go ahead and create appointments. Appointments would be able to overlap, go across multiple days. You can see that similar to this is returning back into a My Blackboard type of that My Blackboard dashboard. You can see the calendar is going to be added to the My Blackboard dashboard along with this modern interface. So this is where I can then filter by course or just have my personal items and then system items as well. The Monument University is just an example here. CourseSites would be an example. So your institution, if you're running Learn, would be represented there from system-wide announcements, or excuse me, calendar items. And you can see the different ways to see the information and navigate through the dates. Okay, but just I can't do this now with the presentation, but again, a much more drag and drop and modern interface that I hope you'll find that you and your students will much more appreciate than the current calendar. This is something that, similar to the video everywhere, is going to be a building block. From what I understand, if it's installed on the system, as we will test this out in CourseSites late this year and most likely release it prior to the new year. All of your existing calendar information will just be presented in the new format. It will be reskinned. So no calendar information should be lost. It is really, again, just a representation of a new calendar, a new look and feel, and then you'll be able to use the tools. And once the new calendar is activated on a system, then anywhere that you would normally access the calendar, so not only through the My Blackboard dashboard, but back on your My Institution tab or the My CourseSites tab, the Student Tools and Instructor Tools has a calendar. In any course, this calendar interface would appear, and similar type of filtering would go on between showing the course-specific items versus the system-wide and the personal items. Okay. Well, great, Susan. I think you just made a little comment. We were waiting for this, and I'm happy that it is available. So yeah, it's coming later this year. You won't have to wait too much longer. But again, this is definitely something that you'll be able to try out. We will be most likely publishing one more newsletter on CourseSites this year, and then I'll publish another one early next year with what we're being able to add between this What's New presentation and the beginning of the year. But again, as long as everything goes well with our testing on CourseSites, with as an institution might, they would test building blocks against some of their existing ones or any customizations that we do on CourseSites. So as long as that goes well, we should see that before next year. Similar, I would think that I'm not sure, it might be that the institutions would need to be on Service Pack 10 for this, but I can double check on that as well. Okay. And then something else that you're going to begin to see as we took a look earlier, and as I mentioned, that the My Dashboard experience, or the My Blackboard experience, excuse me, is going to be expanding. So you can see that some of these screens are going to represent our move into a much more social learning realm. And this is going to be a place where users would not only be able to interact on your campus, but as we begin to move more and more into the social realm, being able to even link them up with users at other Blackboard campuses. So perhaps I'm a student who's studying geography and I want to know if there are any other students who are interested in a particular subset of geography. I might be able to look for and connect with users across different campuses using the Blackboard social framework. So the profiling and the people tool that you can see here is going to be something that will be released early in 2013, particularly on CourseSites, and then from Blackboard in general, to be able to be leveraged for campuses. The people tool will allow us to connect again with users initially on our own campus and then potentially across different Learn instances. And Spaces would be something where it acts, I don't want to call it exactly like a Facebook wall, but it is really an ad hoc way for either teachers or students, if they're allowed to do so, to create some self-networking groups, study groups, or other co-curricular type of cohorts that they might want to create, which currently might be blocked from doing so because it might be too cumbersome to get a course set up. It might not tie in automatically to our systems, or organizations aren't available. That request process might not be available to us. So the Spaces would really provide the users to create ad hoc type of groupings and be able to connect with one another and have a different place to go ahead and keep each other informed about what's going on. And then you'll begin to see the release of a messages area as well. And this is going to be something that will be different from the current course messages that you're used to. It will be something that will be available within the social realm for users to go ahead and communicate amongst each other, but not necessarily within, specifically within a course, but across the organization, the institution, the district, and then potentially, again, as social expands across different Learn instances. Okay, and we expect to be able to enable some of this in CourseSites early 2013 once it becomes available from Blackboard in general. So what we want to make sure is that we are communicating this out correctly to all of our users on CourseSites and making sure that they're informed. So we'll most likely run additional what's new and specific webinars on this type of capability as they released early next year. So I did see a couple of new questions come in. So Steve, you wrote, is adding a calendar item different, i.e. more options when adding a calendar item? So yeah, it is. It will be a bit different. You'll see, I don't have that screen available to me today. It won't be much more complex. It's a pretty simple process, but just the ability to be able to, for instance, overlap appointments, like you might normally be able to do in other calendaring type of systems, or have a multi-day type of appointment go on. So there'll be a little less limitations than there are, I would say, than they exist currently today. One thing I did neglect to mention about the calendar, which, Steve, your next question reminds me, and something I know that everyone's been waiting for, I can't believe I forgot, is that once you post an assignment with a due date to the course, that automatically now appears in that course's calendar. So this saves the teacher from having to both put it within the calendar as well as the due date. So the students will not only see it in their updates area that we took a look at earlier in the My Blackboard interface, but they would see it on the calendar as well. And then if we're still utilizing the to-do modules and other types of notifications, so we can really provide a number of channels for students to remain informed about what's happening in the course, about what's due and what's new. Yes, Jane, I mentioned assignments, but anything that necessarily has a due date would now populate in the calendar where we have due dates. So assessments is something where we can place due dates, particularly right now within the Grade Center. And Steve, you continued your question earlier, so let me return there. You mentioned send an email to a course when adding a calendar item, color coding different calendar items within a course. So I'm not too sure. I believe the email with a new calendar item would be linked to the notifications platform, but let me go ahead and check on that if that's what you're talking about. If not, clarify for me a bit in the chat. The color coding, I believe, is something that you can go ahead and choose different colors on your own. I know we started you off with some, but I believe that's going to be something that is possible for you to choose on your own. And then recurring calendar items, I do have to check on that. I don't want to give any false information out. I do believe that is something that will be a part of that. I just have not had access to some of the internal documentation yet. So I can double check on those items for you and surely get back. If not by the time that we send the recording, then go ahead and send me a direct email again, and I can get back to you. And then we will be releasing, I'll try to make sure that we have a good amount of this information along with the Getting Started guide once we put the calendar in CourseSites, so that all the students and the teachers have that information. We'll be putting together a quick guide for everyone along that regard. Great. Well, excellent. Thanks, Steve. Okay, so I think that was all the questions in the chat. I did mention early on that we are also now looking towards providing, and Ray, I think you might have been the one with the question about the notifications earlier. So this is what your notification dashboard looks like when you go into your notification settings. As you can see, the dashboard capability is something that would dictate what shows up in those modules and what shows up in the My Blackboard interface. The mobile is something that we don't have currently connected to CourseSites, honestly just from a cost perspective from all the SMS messaging there. But we are going to be enabling a feature that has been built by our Blackboard Connect group. And this was something that is called Blackboard Connect TXT. And this is going to enable users on CourseSites to be able to send out or to opt into having notifications sent to them via SMS. So in addition to maybe getting an email about when an announcement has become available or when an assignment is becoming available or when it's due, both instructors and students can opt into receiving SMS messages about this, knowing that they're much more on their smart devices than they might be checking email. So they might be responding to text messages a lot more rapidly or a lot more frequently. So that will be something that we see early in 2013, and again, something that will provide a good amount more information on and the options in terms of how to activate that as an end user at that time. Okay, so as you can see, we're really trying to address a good number of the questions, the concerns, and particularly the needs of students and instructors, not only with Service Pack 10, but some of the other features that we're incorporating into CourseSites. And as some of you can tell, what we're trying to do with CourseSites is really put forth a best practice implementation of how Blackboard technology can come together into what Sarah and I have come to call really one learning landscape. So hopefully for those of you who are using CourseSites to go ahead and try out the technology, you can go ahead and do so with the My Blackboard and the Global Nav, the Content and Math Editor, the item analysis, and the other features that we described. And then you can keep coming back and taking a look at what's new as we begin to add the calendar, the social features to the cloud, and the Connect TXT capabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and hang on. I know we're just about at our time, so if there are further questions, I'm happy to help answer. I can hang on for a few minutes, but I really appreciate you joining us today. And as a reminder, I will be sending out the recording. And for anybody who wants to contact me, I did provide my email in the chat. I'll go ahead and do that once more. If you have other questions that you feel I wasn't able to address, or just things that popped up, or perhaps as things pop up after today's session, you're welcome to go ahead and contact me. But thank you so much for being a part of the CourseSites community, and I really appreciate you being with us. So let me go ahead and answer some of the questions that I see that has come through the chat, as some folks might be logging off. Ray, you mentioned that if our personal cell phone number is kept private or visible to others, they are surely kept private. So they would be in the individual's profile area only. Okay, great. I don't see many more questions. I'm just going to stop the recording, but again, I will hang on.